What is going on, people? We are back for another episode of Throwdown. Oh, I am your host, Emilio. I am your host, Emilio Lopez, and I am joined by. All right, guys. Hello.
Some people.
Yeah, some people.
Uh,
Joined by Carlos Romero.
yo, yo, yo. Yeah, I forgot that's Tony's intro, so I shouldn't have expected it. What up, everyone? We got new co-hosts on the show.
Co-host.
We brought back some old faces, and looking forward to talk about what's going on this week with games.
And Brett Murdoch.
Yeah, what's up, people? You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll probably do neither of those things.
All right, and the returning one, Mr. Brian Menjoma.
I'm actually really quite mad that I missed Torrance and Riku last week, but hey, I'm here now.
They literally took like as soon as we had some topics, and all that went out the window. We just went to it became the war zone. I was saying it on the show, like whenever there's only two people that can literally be on the show and take over the show. And that's Torrance, and that's Hip Hop Gamer.
There's actually a psychological, I forget what the name is, but it's something about like when you get around the people that you came up with, you tend to revert back to your old behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just that plus, we don't get a chance to have Mon often. It's always fun, but it always happens.
Yeah, to be honest, like especially with Torrance, he's sort of like he's literally wiped the slate totally clean. Like he's removed his social media and he's totally pulled off all of it. So the only way you can really talk to him is like if you text him. Then Tony.
Dude, I just realized Torrance is like the grizzled protagonist in the sequel action movie, right? Like you go out to the cabin and they're just fishing. And they're like, I just fish now. And they're like, you're needed back. They're like, I told you I'm retired.
I'm done with this shit. That's pretty much it. But every so often, just like Charles Bronson, right? He comes back. Something happens to him or something. He feels the fire and he has to come back. So it's always a pleasure having like Torrance come back and just do some stuff.
Yeah. He keeps trying to get out, but we keep pulling him back in.
I mean, I don't think he's getting. I don't think in general he's getting out. I think it's more like he's like sometimes he just walks in the door and then walks back out and that's it.
Dude, I respect that. Like, I mean, let's be honest. Like, the world has gotten weirdly more toxic, and as a species, we're still trying to figure out how to deal with the internet and all being connected like this. And I honestly think he's onto something, man. Like, I mean, learning when to healthily disconnect is a good thing, man. We should all take notes.
I think in general, the one thing to know is that the dimension of the real world and the dimension of the internet are two different things. There was to plug another YouTube channel, the Game Theorist, or he was a film theorist, essentially did like a video about how essentially the reception of films outside of outside of the bubble of Twitter and the rest of the social media world is actually a lot different. So like there was really no talk about the new Avatar film, but yet off the everywhere else, like in the other spaces, the new Avatar film was like everybody wanted to see it. So it's a very interesting sort of thing. Like like the biggest show right now is not like Star Trek or any of those other shows. It's Yellowstone. And who watches Yellowstone? Right?
I think it's easy to forget. People live in a bubble. I mean, like I do.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like I forget honestly what it's like to be around some normie people, because let's be honest, as much as there's stereotyping, the tattoo culture, it's a little bit different, right? So like every once in a while I get to the richer, whiter part of town. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot fucking people live like this.
You're
man.
Like, this is how the other half lives.
Yeah. It's easy to forget that like most people aren't, we live in a bubble of our own self-constructed world. Like that's the privilege of being an adult, man. Like that's the thing that's cool about growing up is you get to, modularly customize your life. You get to take out the parts that suck and just be like, I'm not going to fucking deal with this. Instead, anime. So that's the good thing. But it's also healthy to remember that we all live in a bubble, especially if you're on social media of any kind.
Yeah.
Well, we even discussed this. Like, we're in a bubble, especially if you're on Facebook, especially if you're on YouTube, especially if you're on Reddit, and even more especially if you're on fucking Twitter, because Twitter is not even a percent of the human population. So
yeah,
it's we're kind of, it's funny because we talk about echo chambers, in particularly in terms of political leanings, but even within both political leanings, or however many political leanings are part of the discourse on Twitter, we're in that echo chamber, and a lot of people don't even discuss what is discussed there or what's polemic about all that stuff. So it's always good to get perspective about things.
Yep.
So yeah, and it's interesting that Torrance is kind of shut off from a lot of that world, especially in gaming. But to give him his credit, and give him his flowers, he's been in the industry. He's been ahead of the curve for a lot since the 90s.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he literally had him and his buddy created a video game magazine and started going to E3, early on, and he had one of the earliest podcasts at the time. So, pretty ahead of the curve. It's just one of those things that he was never able to sort of, bring it right over to the top. And I think that's what our old site STFU and Play was supposed to be. He even said it back then. He's like, to us all, he's like, listen, this is my last push at this trying to do this game journalist thing. So we're gonna go as hard as we can, and we got a little something, but it just never worked out, and then eventually, he closed up the site, and we all sort of, Throwdown stayed together, and we moved on to Coalition and all that sort of stuff. But yeah,
there's only so much room on the mountaintop, and honestly, some of the people who get there, it's strictly luck. Like, hard work and talent, only part of the equation. And it's a weird paradigm, because I think it's kind of like the art industry, Manny. Like, you kind of there's this weird conundrum that there's only so much room on the mountaintop, like I said, but everybody wants to rush that. But to have any chance to get to that mountaintop, you got to convince yourself that you got a chance to get there, right? Yep. Like, so you almost have to be deluded to even have a chance. It's a weird paradigm, but it's something I've definitely noticed in art, and it's like, to have the audacity to be like, I'm fucking talented. But then you gotta believe in yourself enough to keep working and practicing, right? So it's this weird catch-22, and it is often discouraging and frustrating. And the truth is that sometimes, no matter how much you tell yourself you're awesome, or no matter how much you try, you're not going to catch a break. I've seen really good artists never able to turn it into something professional, and they can't all just be because they can't hit deadlines or produce.
There's a lot that goes into essentially creation for a living, and it's not, and it's one thing that I always used to wonder with other people that were very more, what I felt were more talented than me, but they never seemed to really push it that far. It's quite a bit of things, and it's really difficult to sort of take something that's in your initial hobby, whether that be, doing, art, or whether that doing like, again, like what we do with our podcast, or with the websites, taking that into a space where you can sort of make money. That's a difficult thing, and there's a lot more parts involved than just, putting it out there. And you have to sort of be like a really good business, not a really good business, but a little more savvy at sort of separating your brain into these different portions. But yeah, that said, let us get this show started after all that fun talk. So, here's our first topic. Google and Nvidia have joined PlayStation with expressing concern to the FTC about Microsoft's Activision deal. So it seems like Google and Nvidia are also being like, "What's going on here? Why is Microsoft doing this?"
okay, this has to get. This leads me to honestly ask the question: do you guys really think there's any substantial claim to this monopoly? Because I don't.
I don't think either. I think there's a lot more involved than just thinking that Microsoft would have a monopoly on gaming. Because to be honest, there are so many other companies. One of the biggest companies, EA, they're still around. They didn't buy EA. They didn't get a bunch of the other companies that are still rocking out there. So, to be honest, I think there's a lot of this not only has to do with just I don't know. Microsoft keeps getting a lot of this sort of like, antitrust sort of stuff on them. So I don't know. I to be honest, I don't think that this Activision deal was that. It's a big deal, but it's not that big of a deal. But who knows?
I can't see it either. Like it leads me to kind of believe like there have to be some politics in play here. If not the entirety of the whole thing, there have to be some, because it doesn't compute otherwise. Even if Microsoft took Call of Duty and made it fully exclusive, that honestly kind of just brings us a little bit more in line to parity. And I understand the argument here where people are mad that Microsoft is kind of buying their way to parity. And then I think there's a discussion to be had there. I don't personally feel that way, but I think there's that is an authentic discussion to be having. But the one that we're having just feels fucking weird.
Yeah.
I will mention this. I do understand why Nvidia is doing it, because Microsoft was one of the companies that spoke against them to the FTC about the Nvidia ARM deal.
All right.
Through. So they're coming in for the payback.
Oh,
Google,
okay.
Maybe they're salty because Stadia was a disaster. So I don't know. I don't know.
Well, maybe they were a disaster compared to Microsoft's
Game Pass.
Game Pass thing. So maybe it's all about. Maybe it's like sour grapes. Like, since we're going down, you're gonna go down too.
Honestly, that'd be interesting, because I've been seeing more and more sour grapes in the industry. Even kind of Microsoft's reaction to this, which was, I forget what it was exactly. So I'm paraphrasing heavily here, but it was basically like, no, we're done playing nice. This is war. Kind of leads me to believe that this, I don't know, this kind of amicability is possibly coming to the end. I mean, corporations are made of people. They're headed by people, and people hold grudges.
He's like, it's like Microsoft now is like, all right, the gloves are off. We're telling everything that's going on now.
To answer your question, Brett, personally, I don't see how this acquisition alone makes Microsoft a monopoly, and I think most people do. But if I'm trying to figure out what the best devil's advocate is for this argument, is I guess the precedent that this could do, where Microsoft, they acquire Activision, and what if they acquire Ubisoft and EA next, or something like that?
Well, I feel like each acquisition, in response to that, wouldn't each acquisition get more difficult, because technically they would be eating up more of the market share? Like, I'm not sure. Well, I understand the concept of precedent, especially in legal dealings, but like, I feel like that kind of might negate itself when you're talking about, ownership of market share.
Yeah, who knows, because Microsoft has been on a spending spree the last couple of years. They got Double Fine, they got the New Vegas guys, Obsidian. I always forget their name. They got Rare a long time ago. They got what's it called, Bethesda. So it feels like each step that Microsoft takes, it's sort of like a bigger one. Double Fine is a really small studio, but then they went Obsidian, which is kind of like a bigger-ish studio, and then Bethesda is a huge studio, and then somehow Activision Blizzard is even bigger than them. So that's not the reason why Sony is doing it, even though I'm pretty sure that's a concern for them. The reason why they're doing it is because they don't want them to have their hands on Call of Duty. That's the main reason.
They've already shown their cards on that one.
I mean, I don't think it's tinfoil hat theory to say like Sony is trying to keep Microsoft as not a threat, which is kind of by definition like they don't want parity. They want them significantly lower, and they're trying to keep them there. I don't think that's a wrong decision for Sony to do. I can understand their incentive to do so. Nobody wants their competitor to get as strong as them. They're going to do everything they can to stop that, even if it's wildly inefficient. So, like, I get it, but I still think, like, I don't think you guys have a leg to stand on, especially when your, worst case scenario is, well, they're going to do what we're paying people to already do.
Yep.
And obviously for us, parity means for better competition, better games, better innovations. But if it's up to Sony, if it's up to Nintendo, if it's up to Microsoft or whoever, if they can get a stranglehold on a market, they'll sure as hell do it. And Sony is proving it by just tooth and clawing of this deal and trying to get it to break however way possible. I'm surprised Nintendo isn't doing anything. I guess they just don't see Microsoft as a competitor. But
they're hanging out in the blue ocean. That's what they are.
Yeah. But yeah, bro, you're right. Sony doesn't want any sort of parity, because anytime Microsoft gets a better, a better position in the marketplace, that means that Sony is losing market share. And obviously they don't want to do that.
Yep. And again, they got those exclusive deals with Activision on the Call of Duty franchise, so they have control at least of the narrative, when they're a third party, right?
And Sony knows this better than most, because they're the ones that thought it was important enough to do last generation, because they were the ones that had sort of a monopoly on the exclusive commercial deals on Call of Duty and some of the content too.
Yep. And that's not to say that Microsoft before them hadn't had that. So
in the 360 days.
In the 360 days. So they're both still playing the same game. It's just they don't,
Well, now the only difference is now they're trying to pretend that there are new rules and they're both following them. Like this is all a big charade. And that's the thing that gets me, like, let's just fucking admit that we're doing. Like, Sony has been throwing around its weight for years to keep people off of its competitors. It's a thing that they've done.
Yeah.
And this is well known. They've leveraged it in their contracts that they won't put something on their system unless it's only on their system. Like, and that's fine. That's not like, I'm not sure if this came out of all anti-consumerism stuff, but like, it is okay as a business to try and one up the other guy. It's not necessarily great for us, especially when we're like, well, that's kind of being shitty to your customers. I don't support it, but you have every fucking right to do it, man.
Yep.
Just as I have every right to fucking judge it.
Yep.
Yeah. And for me, as someone that doesn't really have a stick in the game, I just enjoy the fact that they're going this hard at this. Microsoft, trying to rejuvenate themselves by acquiring one of the biggest studios, and Sony doing everything it can to cancel it.
No, you can't have it.
Yo, man, FTC, you do something about this. Yeah, it's comical for me. I don't know whether to judge it as if what Microsoft is doing or could potentially lead to anti-consumerism, or what Sony is doing is doing anti-consumers for Xbox players, if it could potentially lead to Xbox failing at some point if they don't get this deal. There's a lot of branches that this could grow up in, and I don't really know which point to take in this.
Also, I want to throw in the general consensus that I found on the internet, which actually brings up a pretty good fucking point, so I can't lay claim to this idea, but a lot of people who are fans of the Activision Blizzard games are kind of the mindset of, yes, please, Microsoft, buy this. I think everybody wants to forget that Activision Blizzard was in a real bad way before this came along. They're not just the allegations of sexual abuse, but the fact that they were not batting 1,000 on their games. They had, shelved many of their more successful IPs with no, idea of how to bring them back, and they didn't have a good track record of revitalizing them. Meanwhile, Microsoft kind of is starting to show that. So I guess a lot of fans are kind of the mindset of, yes, please take this. infuse it with some capital, give it a facelift, and give us the version that we all fucking deserve, because this shit has turned into a dumpster fire.
I think
so when we're talking about like consumer versus anti-consumer, I kind of feel like, you know, people may be trying to paint this as an anti-consumer picture, and I just want to point out that's not how the consumers feel. It's not how the developers feel, and that's not how many of the developers who have gone with Microsoft feel. The general idea seems to be that they're treated pretty well.
I think the one thing about it is that it also makes Microsoft a little less picky as to what they will put out, I would think, because they're literally trying to fill up their service with unique content. So does that mean we'll see, you know, like a Pitfall like revitalization or any of the other franchises that Activision is just so happy to be sitting on, because they got a lot?
Yeah.
They just haven't made any of those games in a while. Yeah.
Let's look at Warcraft. Or they still have Diablo, but Warcraft died. World of Warcraft completely, it fucking nosedived from what I understand. The community is just, man, it's the opposite of what happened with Final Fantasy. StarCraft, like, even the ones that have been commercially successful, they haven't been critically acclaimed in a while. Like, everybody loves StarCraft until its, you know, model of breaking a single game across 3 games, all with DLC to milk every penny out of you. I don't think a lot of people appreciate that. As a result, I don't think a lot of people even bought or played the full StarCraft experience. I know I didn't. I got 2/3 of the way through that shit, and I was like, nope, I'm not done. Or I'm done. I'm not paying for this shit anymore.
Yeah, I know it's an interesting thing. So it'd be fascinating to see if this all goes through, what things might get greenlit. You know, what things might decide to come back, besides just making 10,000 Call of Duty games and, you know, and DLC for World of Warcraft and, you know, stuff like that.
Well, I mean, plus, you know, Microsoft wants to break into the mobile market, and as much as I don't like the idea of anybody breaking into the mobile market, weirdly, I'm more okay with it with Microsoft than anybody else, just because of their game streaming platform and capabilities. Like, look, man, I might actually, one of these days, I might actually be able to get a real game on my phone. Even more so, I mean, I can almost do that now. And so, you know, if you're starting to then talk about, like, well, building a structure for, you know, hybrid or crossover games that don't suck might be a move for the future. So I feel like their point of view of like, no, dude, this is all about mobile. We're trying to build a mobile platform. I feel like that has substance to it.
Yeah, so it's one of those things. So we'll see. You know, the drama of the of the Activision Microsoft acquisition will continue until something happens. But we gotta move on. Then also this is an unfortunate thing. Well, I don't know if it's unfortunate because of the first thing we're gonna mention, but Ubisoft delays Skull and Bones for the 6th time, by the way, and cancels 3 unnamed games, unannounced games. So Skull and Bones, I mean, how long has it been? Like they announced that game around the time, or maybe a little bit before, Sea of Thieves.
Well, dude, I didn't realize until I came across some internet things recently that Ubisoft was doing so bad as a company. Like, do you guys realize how financially awful they are? They have more employees and less profit than almost every other video game studios, often by like wide margins, or even like
they're possibly too bloated at this point in time.
Oh no, they are absolutely too bloated. They actually, I didn't know this. Did you guys know that Ubisoft tried to shop around for acquisitions and everybody basically laughed at them?
Yeah, they're at a weird. They're a long way from essentially saving themselves from before, but now it's like, what is going on there?
Well, it's the reason everybody laughed at them is because they are, as you said, they're too bloated. Their expenses versus, you know, their output are just too different. So because their expenses are so high, their acquisition cost would be astronomical for anything that, you know, they'd be putting out. So I just find it funny that Ubisoft kind of went with the whole like, well, everybody's selling themselves. We're taking offers, and all they got was laughter.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I think like one of the something like I think a lot of it was them putting too much of their eggs in the basket of all those sort of service games. They like had like 3 service games released at this similar time, right? Wasn't it like the Division, and then they had a Breakpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I also think that the Ubisoft model, like I think that was really bad for them, especially because we basically everybody called them out all at once, and they were already developing halfway through their development of other things that were just like that. Like we're not going to see a turnaround in Assassin's Creed for several more years. Like that would be the first chance. It had to be innovative, so they kind of got stuck in their own meme for a while, and it's not a good look, man.
Yeah, and they don't have, and to be honest, I feel like when it comes to a lot of these games, it's like obviously again it takes like 4 and 5 years to develop. They need a shot in the arm quick, to me, or they need something to really get some numbers off of it. And I feel like they thought, at least in this article, or some of the articles about this, they even thought that Rabbids would do really well for them, which I don't think they should have thought Rabbids was going to do well for them.
It did well in the past, but like that's the thing is, dude, that was 20 years ago when that shit was cute. It's not like it's a whole. The people you sold those games to are now adults.
It's a novelty sort of game, and really it shouldn't have. It's one of those games that doesn't have to have a high budget, and it's just a little bit of like a little something there. You should be like, okay, you shouldn't be expecting it to do well. You should at least expect it to at least pay for itself.
Well, and the irony is like, Rabbids kind of came out when it came out. At least the way I took it, its original flavor was it was supposed to be kind of subversive. It was supposed to be kind of against this kind of cartoony, normal kind of cartoony backdrop of cheery and happy and non-satirical Cuphead. It was kind of the first take on, I guess, Minions-esque behavior.
Yeah.
They were rowdy. They were didn't care about the danger they put themselves or others in. They're basically gremlins. It was kind of fun. And then in subsequent iterations, they softened them up to be the very thing that they were making fun of originally.
Yeah, and the other thing is that at this point, most people don't remember exactly where they came from. They're from the Rayman franchise, and where is Rayman?
I think that they thought that these were iconic, and like that's the thing. Like we're bringing back these things from 20 years ago, and people were like, yeah, "I guess I kind of remember that." Like this is like the Noid, right? Like
yeah.
Sure, it was memorable to some people who saw it, but it didn't break out big enough to be a memetic thing worthy of recalling 20 years later.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like it was a thing, but it doesn't need to be continue to be a thing. Really, they really need to again, like I don't know how well the Rayman games do, but at least if they come out with a new Rayman game, people know what Rayman is. People, obviously people know what the Rabbids are, but to be honest, the only thing that's keeping the Rabbids alive is the fact that they have them connected to this Mario crossover game. Yeah. They're not making any more Rabbids games.
By the way,
and I think Rayman's honestly a bit of a stretch. Like,
yeah, I get what
you're saying, but I don't know if they can remake a Rayman game now.
Yeah, it's been so far since that last one. What was it? Rayman Legends or something?
Legends. Yeah. That was a good game too.
Yeah, and what was it? They had a good run of games out there. What was it? The Child of Light game, and there was the one about World War One,
Valiant Hearts.
Yeah, Valiant Hearts.
Aren't they maybe making like a sequel to it? Like it got announced at the Game Awards.
Did it? I don't know. I thought it was just Valiant Hearts again or more. We got Valiant Hearts 2, World War 2. That's the only place you could go, right?
The Ubisoft, when all these announcements went through, it was part of a release, and apparently there's I pulled up an article here where everyone's favorite CEO Guillemot sent an email to his staff, and I'm gonna read bits of the article, but it's pretty serious. So it says here, Guillemot wrote to the staff email about how Ubisoft might get back on path to success. Kotaku reports having viewed this email, which reads, "Today more than ever, I need your full energy and commitment to ensure that we get back to the path to success. I am also asking that each of you be especially careful and strategic with your spending and initiatives to ensure we've been efficient and lean as possible." Guillemot added that the upcoming games for the next fiscal year translates to the biggest pipeline in Ubisoft history. And again, addresses staff to say the ball is in your court to deliver this lineup on time and at the expected level of quality and show everyone what we are capable of achieving.
Nobody performs as well as when they're given a dire ultimatum.
Yeah. They have with a noose around your neck. Go make this game.
Yeah. And remember, do your best, or else.
Or else.
Yeah, this is however, there's a lot of different ways people can interpret it, but the one thing that I think everyone will interpret is, yeah, they're not doing good.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think any of their employees walked away from that going, I've got job security.
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Especially in Montreal, and Montreal's very expensive. That's where their headquarters is. That's where
that's a bad idea.
I mean, that's where Capcom had a branch over there too. The guys who used to do Dead Rising, at least the was it Capcom Montreal, and they closed that place down because they're just like, well, number one, their games weren't doing amazingly, and they were spending all this money on this expensive studio. So they just said, all right.
You know what, man? Tech firms need to move out to the Midwest. You can buy like a whole town out here.
To be honest, there are so many places that you can have a game studio and have thing. And like now, especially now where companies are so much more open to the idea of remote full-time positions. You could literally, to be honest, if they really wanted to save some money, they could literally close down a bunch of the other branches, have everybody work from home. Maybe they have like a smaller place where the people can gather, maybe get some lunch, hang out, do team meetings, and just try to cut the fat that way.
Man, I mean, couldn't you just have the conference room and not the offices?
Yeah, you can have the conference room and not the office. Just go in. But yeah, because again, now everybody's so open to remote workplace and all that stuff. But yeah, there's a bunch of different things that they could sort of cut down. But we'll see. I don't know.
Ubisoft is getting to a point where if they don't deliver, they're going to get sold for way less than they ever expected to.
To be honest, I would think that the thing that's going to happen is that if anything, they go down, they go bankrupt, and all that's going to happen is all their IPs are just going to get all snatched up.
Old. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's possible as well. They can go the THQ route.
Yeah, just totally again, like put on the one of those holdings companies. Just somebody just buys them all, or once that company comes in. What are those guys? They've been buying up a bunch of studios these days. They're formerly THQ.
THQ Nordic. No,
whatever their parent company is called now.
Yeah,
Deep Silver.
Yeah, is that Deep Silver?
I think it's Deep Silver.
I thought it was something else. But anyway, yeah, whatever that company is, they're literally snatching up a bunch of studios like crazy. So
it's THQ Nordic, right?
Yeah, it's THQ Nordic, but like they changed the name of the parent company.
Embracer.
Yeah, Embracer. There we go. There.
Yep. Or worst case, it could be, the company begins with a T.
It ends with a T.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Tencent. Oh no.
Oh no.
Yeah, they get them like Tencent doesn't have any sort of, and the other company doesn't have some factor in one company or another. So.
Yeah. Or maybe Microsoft jumps in and they're like,
well, yeah, like, they don't get Activision. They're like, well, we can't get Activision, but we can afford ourselves a cheap Ubisoft.
they're on sale.
They're on sale. We can make us a new Assassin's Creed.
Which, to be quite frankly, that's probably worse than getting Bethesda, because I would rather have Bethesda than Ubisoft.
Yeah, I feel like Ubisoft has a lot of run into the ground franchises, and to be honest, like earlier on in their level, after the whole Rayman stuff, like they got into hardcore into all those sort of licensed games. So they have a bunch of those licensed games that are all sort of in limbo.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what other franchises. I can't remember what other franchises they have. Oh, well, Evil Within that they keep announcing and not announcing.
Let's not forget that they kind of pioneered some of the gaming industry's most abusive tactics. So, like, the backlash they're getting is kind of deserved on some fronts. I mean, their name is kind of synonymous with microtransactions and worn-out IPs.
Yeah, essentially squeezing an IP so much to the point where nobody wants to play them anymore.
Well, also, it ruins the game. Like, they're fucking selling armor sets for this, Assassin's Creed instead of letting you unlock them in the goddamn game. They've taken all the rewards and fun out of the game and just turned it into a chore cycle that you can bypass by paying money. It's they found a way to take games and make them more expensive and less fun. Fuck them.
I mean, to be honest, that I would say if out of the two, I would say it would be between them and EA, because I mean EA had that whole stuff, and remember Dante's Inferno, where you could literally just unlock everything if you paid enough money.
Oh no, EA is the worst by far, and I think that's one of the reasons that Ubisoft like doesn't get as much flack as I feel like they should. But no, 100%. Like EA has proven this time and time and time again. They will. There's no bad game they won't release or bad practice they won't try if it means another bottom dollar for them. And yeah, they've been able to back that up with games that you're like, fuck, I don't want to deal with this shit, but I want to play this game. Every so often,
with all the horrors that they with all the screwy things that they keep on doing with all the sports games and all that stuff, then they release Jedi Fallen Order. And you're like, where the fuck did that come from?
Yeah,
well, that's Respawn. Respawn. Yeah, is like one of the few good developers they have.
Yeah, I mean, they all the guys that do their duty games are all really talented studios. It's just like, let those motherfuckers make some games that don't involve you having to be attached to a gun.
Yeah.
But
so Ubisoft, I feel like I just don't see them making it out of this year. That they don't have the IPs that generate like anywhere near Call of. Activision has what is it? Is it Candy Crush? I forgot one of those mobile games that always makes bank. They have that. They have Call of Duty. They have World of Warcraft. Even though it's still it's not what it used to be. It still brings in some money, and they have that other Blizzard game, the card game. What's it called? Hearthstone. They have Hearthstone, so that brings money. EA, they have the Madden franchise. They have FIFA. Those bring in money. Ubisoft, it doesn't look like they have something that's that reliable that brings up money.
At least not anymore. They already sabotaged a bunch of their service games to the point where nobody cares about them anymore. Adam's not going into the division no more.
He hasn't been in the division for years.
Yep, that was his game.
That really says something.
Yeah,
because Adam loves himself some modern military shooter type games.
Oh, dude, Adam was like he was the conductor of the division train for the longest time. Like, if you fuck over your customer base so bad that your hardcore evangelicals lose faith, you've really done something wrong, man.
Yeah. That's disappointing.
Looking at you, Command and Conquer.
Ah! I'm surprised they didn't bring that one back.
Oh, please. I've been hurt enough.
You're like, don't bring it back. No, it still hurts.
Yeah, like 4 was just so bad. And then they're like, hey, you know what? This whole like building bases thing, we're just gonna do away with that whole thing altogether. And you're like, what? Sure, why not? Because fuck me.
I always found it funny about Command and Conquer is because the guy who played the what's that guy? The bad guy? What's his name? The bald dude?
Kane.
Kane. That guy was like the developer of the game. And years after after his company was gone, they still would hire him back to play Kane. It's like, why did you get that motherfucker to make a game? You know, he obviously helped. He obviously created a cool game. Get the guy back. Nah, we're gonna hire him to play Kane
because EA. This was one of like EA's biggest and most classic blunders. Like they started fucking that shit up from the get-go. As soon as they got their hands on it, they immediately made it just go sideways. And they burned it out with brand fatigue, and they started innovating it to death.
I heard the quotes in your voice.
I actually made them. That's good. That's very impressive.
Innovated them. Yep. So there we go. That's what's going on in the streets with the Ubisoft. Let's see if they're able to pull themselves out of the downward spiral. Hashtag 9-inch nails. Anyway,
let me ask you guys: do you want them to?
I mean, I don't like to see companies sort of like fall apart like that because of their own stupidity. Like I would like to see, because again, I do think that in general, like just from the history that the studio has had of making genuinely good, fun games, I'd like to see them get back to that sort of point. But maybe they're too far gone. Maybe that's all they want to do is just make a bunch of, soulless service games.
I mean, I don't want anybody to lose their job, but I almost feel like if there are still those people who originally made those games fun a decade ago, like you honestly just need to, because here's the thing I've noticed. We don't really lose talent when a company gets dissolved. Even when a company gets bought out, half the people leave and then just start another game company, get a bunch of press because the gaming industry recognizes names, and go and make their new thing. And it's either a flop or a success based on its merit. You don't really seem to have a lot of clout as a company as long as you have high-profile developers and creatives. And I think that's a good way for the industry to be, because we don't lose this talent. It just gets recycled.
Oh, yeah, here's the thing. Like, we have no idea that I would suspect that most of the people that made all of your favorite, Ubisoft titles are probably already went on to open their own studios. Like, the guy who initially created the Assassin's Creed, he has been gone for years. So I don't, Jade Raymond really didn't make any games. She was sort of like a, brand studios, but who knows? All those people that made all those genuinely good games are all gone, and all that's left is just a bunch of people that really that are all being directed by committee as opposed to having a real vision.
Yeah, that always happens. I mean, we've seen that story way too many times.
Yep, too many cooks in the kitchen. Once you've already shot down all the creative people, then it becomes too many cooks in the kitchen who have a bunch of bad ideas, and there's nobody to essentially push all of that out of the way and be like, no, this is what we're doing. Shut the fuck up. Get out. Close the door in their face.
And then, Brett, to answer your question, I don't want Ubisoft to go because they have lots of really good IPs that they've just done really awful things with. For example, Rainbow Six. Like, if you take Rainbow Six from 10 years ago, and if you were to take Rainbow Six, what's the new one? The one that they made, not Siege, but the one afterwards. That really weird Back for Blood one.
Yeah, like the
Extraction
the one
or something like that.
Rainbow Six. I'll look it up.
Do you think they're currently the best stewards for that? I mean, the IP could be picked up by somebody else.
I just don't. That's true. I will give you that. But then again, the thing that I fear the most is that it'll go to a company that that understands the IP even less than Ubisoft does, and
It
somehow
was
makes a worse game. Yeah, Extraction. If you take Extraction back to like people like 10 years ago and say this is what Rainbow Six becomes, then they would die because it's so far from what it was. I mean, like like the Tom Clancy games, they used to be like, okay, like it's a Tom Clancy game, like it's going to be something. But now it's like it's just a moniker that they just slap on stuff. And that's not to say that Ubisoft have not made good IPs, like new IPs. I mean, Watch Dogs and The Division, both really good new IPs. Granted, the games in the series started out okay and then kind of got worse, but it's still the idea like, okay, they do have the capacity, or they did, I guess, have the capacity to do good things, and it would still be nice if the people are there for them to continue to do good things. But if they've moved on, then yeah, I think again, as you guys said, like if all the creators have gone, then there's no point anymore.
Yeah,
That's how we kind of feel about Halo. Halo, lost a lot of what made it, a lot of the people that inspired the game, that brought a lot of the ideas about the game, and it's so slowly but surely losing what it made Halo, and it's just a different experience.
Sort of a sort of a weird skeleton of it. It's somebody somebody else's underneath Master Chief costume. We don't see who it is, but we know it's somebody different. It's like a casting change.
It's an Egger suit.
It's a what?
It's an Egger suit.
It's an Egger suit. So yeah. There's the next one. Speaking of developers, some Callisto Protocol developers were left out of the credits. So to give you a little context on what this is that some developers who worked on the game were actually not in the closing credits of the game or even featured in the credits, and a lot of them had significant contributions to the game. So some of the people that did a lot of the graphics, a lot of the game, some of the game design, but I think a lot of it has to do with there was another studio that had this issue where they had contractors come in for X amount of time, and then they didn't credit them. I think it was CD Projekt Red.
Oh,
what that original one. So yeah, so these guys are just talking about like they saw the credits and they're like, we're not there, and it's like it's a good amount of people that weren't there. So it's one of those unfortunate things.
Yeah, I don't really know how all that stuff works. Like who should be in the credits? Is it like everyone who ever worked on the game?
Well, there is actually according to the article from GameIndustry.biz, I think that's what I got there. Yeah, there is actually within the studios, there is a certain amount of time that you can work on a project where you will still get a credit. I can't remember if it's like a month or certain or 2 months or something like that. You're working on a project and then you still get a credit despite you not working there anymore. So I can't remember exactly what it said, but there's an agreed upon time, which means that some of the people that were there were probably they're just like at least some people are accusing the main developers over there as playing favoritism over something. I think that's a little bit hearsay.
Hearsay.
Yeah, it's unfortunate though, because again, like especially if you worked on, I mean, say what you will about the game, it's still a pretty big title. As I remember, it didn't do horrible, as I remember, right?
I don't know if we've gotten numbers yet, but considering that's not a huge game, like it's not a Call of Duty or anything like that. I feel like for the audience that it grabbed from, I feel like it has to be a success, right? Because I feel like a lot of people played it, even though a lot of people didn't like it. Tony, there's still a lot of people tried it out that otherwise wouldn't have. But who knows? We got to see the numbers, obviously. But the attention for that game was high, considering that it's not Callisto Protocol was never this huge AAA kind of franchise that people were expecting. It just came out of nowhere, and people wanted were intrigued because it was a Dead Space, guys.
Yeah, it was the people, a lot of the people that did the Dead Space. I wonder what their budget on this one was. I wonder if that was if it was a lower budget sort of game, and maybe some of the things that Tony was talking about were like repeating enemies and all that stuff. That's a symptom of that sort of idea, where in other words they didn't have a huge company to sort of start make all of these different assets and things. But who knows? Brett, you played it, right? Or you skipped on it?
Callisto Protocol? No, I didn't play it. I don't know why, but actually I do know why. Like when I was younger, I really used to like those kind of games, and then life kicked me in the balls enough that I'm like, you know what? I've had enough of that terrified feeling for a lifetime. It's not fun anymore.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally understand that. I mean, to be honest, I don't actually play like deep horror sort of games. I haven't played one of those since the Resident Evil 6. No, 5, something like that.
That's what I'm saying. They just felt more fun when you were younger, didn't they?
Well, no, it's I never really. Yeah, I guess I didn't care. I don't know. They're a little bit different. It's a weird sort of thing. I don't know. I could never. I didn't have nothing against Dead Space, but I never really played it. That was more Chris, a game that Chris ended up playing.
Well, I'm the same way. I probably trailed out around Resident Evil 5 or 6.
Yeah, I feel like five was an action game. So like I'm more inclined to play action-y sort of games or RPGs or stuff like that than more horror games. I can't really say that I own very many full-on horror games. Though I love watching horror movies. It's interesting though. But I think like interactive horror and action and what do they call it? Interactive horror and passive horror, like movies, are two different things to me.
Yeah, well, I think the irony for me is that Dark Souls games have made me sweat more than any horror game ever did.
I mean, to be honest, those games are like there's a lot of levels that you can be sort of freaked out. Yeah, they're totally like it's more. They definitely lean toward more horror fantasy, but I like sort of playing those. Like I like the idea of playing those games in a full on sort of horror game. I think it has to do with empowerment. You know what I mean? Like if you eventually get to the point of you can eventually triumph over a lot of the horror in those things.
Well, I think to put a finer point on that, I think it's agency, right? Like I think a lot of true horror games make it horror by robbing you of your agency. Like, oh yeah,
you're somehow hindered in some sort of way, right? Like,
yeah, like you're not able to take down the Titan. There's not enough bullets, or it's has an impossibly large health bar or something. It's fine if you're like, you probably can't be this, but you're welcome to try. It's not impossible. Like that's where I find my sweet spot.
Yeah, like I guess like I would say the first Resident Evil was the fact that the control system was so sort of specific that it did make you sort of be hesitant about going into action. Then obviously the bullet, your bullet situation and your inventory, all those things, those factors. But I feel like once Resident Evil franchise started going into the 3D realm, now you're essentially like you have every single gun under the sun as long as you could fit it in your cache case, right? And that's the road toward the action adventure horror game.
Yeah, I always felt like, why did they send special forces in with like no ammo?
Yeah, they get or they just said, okay, Jill, you can't have that shotgun. Only so and so can have the shotgun, and he's just got killed.
Well, in fairness, that's a man shotgun. A lady can't handle a man shotgun.
But I also think that it also comes from the roots of Resident Evil. Also comes from that game Sweet Home, which was like pretty much like the first one of the earliest survival horror games, right? And in that game, each of the characters had their own abilities. Like, one character had things, that could help you solve puzzles, and other things help you had other things. And when those characters died, you lost those abilities, or you got like sort of gimped ability version of those abilities if the characters somehow died. So they have a little bit of that in Resident Evil. It's more time based, where it's like, if you get to the sewers too slowly, Barry's dead, stuff like that. So
yeah,
and then you are essentially hit. Barry being there actually makes certain portions of the game really easy. Like when you're going through the sewers, Barry has that unbelievably strong like hand cannon, and he literally just blows up all the what are those guys, the lickers, not the lickers, what are those things, the lizard creatures, I can't remember what those are. Oh, the hunters. He would literally just shoot the hunters off the walls and they'd instantly die. So, and then again, like later on too, he does that for you too, if he's still alive. But yeah, so there you go, Callisto Protocol. It's every single thing I hear about the game studio behind, like certain things about that game studio, it sounds just sort of a little weird, like certain thing, like there's some other things that I can't remember them saying about that studio too. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, hopefully they're able to hopefully that the reception of this game isn't so horrible that it doesn't allow them to make a new one and essentially improve on what was done before. Because at this point, to be honest, Callisto Protocol for a lot of people is the Order 1886. Yeah. Stupidly beautiful looking graphically game, and sort of like underwhelming on the other end.
Little substance.
Yeah.
I hope kind of, and I know it's probably hard to compare these two in some senses, but God damn it, I mentioned their names before. The studio that made a Titanfall.
Mm-hmm. Obsidian.
Respawn.
There we go.
Respawn was sort of the leftovers from the Call of Duty. They made a Call of Duty games for Activision, and then they made their own studio. And Titanfall 1 was their first game, and it was kind of a nice concept, but there wasn't as much substance as people wanted it to have.
Mm-hmm.
And then they made Titanfall 2, and Titanfall 2 was great. So they got to build upon what they had, and now they're making Star Wars games, and so they're doing more stuff. But obviously they had the EA backing, so I don't know if the Callisto Protocol guys have that same thing. But
they're connected to PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. Whatever company does that game, they're connected to that. In fact,
really?
In fact, Callisto Protocol initially was weirdly connected to the PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. But then later on it was switched out. But then there's still some things that are connected. If you know anything or played any of those Battlegrounds games, there's some mention of something, virus and stuff that exists in that world that exists inside of the Callisto Protocol world too. So maybe they got that, they have that PlayerUnknown Battleground backing, so that was them sort of attempting to make a different sort of game instead of one of those. I'll tell you one thing though, Callisto Protocol looks 1,000 times more better than Battleground.
Oh yeah, I mean that goes without saying. But yeah, hopefully they're able to make build upon what they started.
So yeah, next up, Mr. Neil Druckmann likes the environmental storytelling of Elden Ring, and hints at wanting to apply this to his own work. Whoa! After all of the backlash from a bunch of Western developers, the golden child here, Mr. Neil Druckmann says, nah, Elden Ring's doing really good shit.
Yeah.
This is, by the way, this is coming via the Washington Post from Tony's boy,
Gene Park.
Shout outs to him for kicking cancer's ass.
Yes, I saw that, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna piss off a lot of people.
Now, you know what's gonna happen. They're just gonna be like, oh, yeah, he's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I wonder how many people are going back and deleting their tweets now.
Yeah, they're all because again, the Golden Child said no. They have really good environmental storytelling.
Well, I think it just adds validity to. I don't think 5 years ago that people even thought about environmental storytelling for the most part. Like, I think that had been in there for a while, but I think it had kind of gone the wayside. You know, you can just mass produce assets and just put a repeating hallway down, you're fine.
I think a lot of games have had environmental storytelling, but I think what some of the I know Neil just said that he likes the environmental storytelling of Elden Ring, but there is a lot of at least I haven't played Last of Us 2, but at least Last of Us Part 1, a lot of that game has some pretty interesting environmental storytelling, like especially when you're using shortcuts to go through people's personal homes or any of that sort of stuff. You can literally walk around the house and almost put together the narrative of that specific family or whatever on the day that they left that home. Like you'd see,
I know, I absolutely agree. And like, I feel like Fallout 3 did kind of the same thing. Like there were so many cool little, like almost Easter eggs that you could find, like, somebody was clearly in the middle of a tea party with their animals when the nukes went off. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't think, my point is, I don't think that people really knew to focus on it. Like, I don't think it was part of the discussion because I don't think the lexicon had been really coined well enough yet. I don't think it was a thing that people strive for. I think it was a thing that kind of happened with extremely creative and talented individuals. They just kind of threw that in there because it's the natural outcome of the line of thinking, like, well, like what would be in this space, right? But I feel like it wasn't a talking point enough for it to be focused on. And now it's starting to be kind of recognized as this cohesive thing. Maybe that's just me, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's different sorts of that sort of stuff, but I also think it's also sort of the environmental storytelling when it comes to a lot of certain AAA games has become a little bit sort of by the numbers, where it's like and it's all like environmental storytelling as far as telling a story within the environment and also guiding the player through an environment. I think those things really existed, but I don't think they fully were taken advantage of on the level of something like the way From Software sort of uses it. They sort of again, they're not really holding your hands at all. They're literally just dropping, almost like what a real adventure would sort of be. You wouldn't know the deeper if you were just dropped in some specific place. If you dropped you in Japan, you wouldn't know all the stories of everything around you. You would have to slowly but surely work your way to whatever goal you have, and then as you do that, you gain the knowledge of the things around you. And obviously, if you're able to sort of translate whatever things are around you to sort of finally get the full story of what was there. But you are going in this environment unknown. You're a stranger in a strange land, right?
You're solving the mystery,
exactly.
Like you personally are. And actually, one of my kind of reminds me of one of my favorite quotes I've heard of Elden Ring lately. Elden Ring doesn't so much as hold your hand as abandon you in childhood.
I don't know.
I think it's a cheeky take, but it's like it's weirdly accurate. Like you're dropped off in the middle of this big weird world that you know nothing about, and you just kind of gotta put the pieces together.
You're the child that's in the house that essentially, as as you progress through know the house, you know that there's certain things that you don't do, like sticking a fork inside of the outlet.
Yeah.
or playing with fire, or touching the stove whenever you're touching the stove when the burners are on.
Yeah, like none of that like harkens back to how I can keep out. None at all.
You're sort of limping across. You're learning to walk across this world, and then as you slowly but surely, you learn to walk, you learn to run, then you learn to fight. You definitely definitely gives a lot more agency to the player. And sort of, again, like, and I know you really like this sort of stuff, to sort of create your own narrative within the narrative, so the gameplay narrative becomes your narrative.
Yeah. I mean, it does a good job of like, here's the world's narrative, so that yours can be built on top of it. I think that's really important. Like, building your own narrative is cool. Building a cohesive narrative, also cool. Doing both of them is where I'm like, I find that really impressive. Mm-hmm. And like, I personally find it fascinating that we're having all these discussions on narrative, and you hear so many people say like, oh, none of the Souls games have a story, or if they do, you just have to find them through looking at obscure item descriptions, to which I always think that's super telling, because yes, there is a lot of lore in item descriptions, but it's item descriptions are really just kind of your Rosetta Stone for understanding the world around you. Like, mm-hmm. You actually have to pay attention to the environment, right? Like for instance, the capital city in Elden Ring, you get there, there's a giant stone dragon collapsed over, like, destroying half the city. And you may ask yourself,
what happened?
Why that's there?
Yeah.
Or you may find an item that says, like, hey, a dragon once attacked the capital and there was a war with the dragons. But if you figure out both, that's when you're like, okay, I see what went on here.
I mean, it's sort of like what you do if you're like, I tend to walk quite a bit, and you walk the same routes and all that sort of stuff, but then you see things that weren't there before, right? And you're like, all right, now how did that get there? And then you'll, like, maybe you spend a little bit of time looking at it and seeing like, oh wait, that fell from over there. Oh shit. All right. So I feel like that's sort of like a mini version of that. But obviously, yeah, the Elden Ring has their little Rosetta Stones where they tell you, okay, you eventually pick up a sword and like, this sword belonged to the glorious blah, 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 who fought the dragon that collapsed on the city. It's like, oh, that city.
Yeah, and it's a really cool moment when you're like, kind of like, you're like, huh. And you like look up from the sword, and you're like, oh, shit, that was here. Oh, damn. Okay. I thought this was just like an old church or something like that. Like, this used to be a meeting hall that they literally exploded. I could see where everything was flying. Okay, I can see that. I can tell where that should happen. Or you can ask a question where you're like, why the fuck is this enemy here? You kind of have to, suss it out and be like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Or, then again, you have like Bayard, right, who's like hang above that church, right? Like you're there at that church for another reason, right? There's one of those like getting merchants, right, at that one broken down church, and you're like, you hear this wolf like howling of like, what the fuck is that shit? And you look up, you see him standing up there, you're like, okay, why is he there?
Yeah. And my favorite is like some of the little things that just lead to more questions that kind of get resolved in an organic way. Like for me, it was like, okay, like I know, not through personal experience, but like the merchants attack you with those crazy laser eye beams. Like, why do all the merchants have crazy eye beams? I'm gonna file that away for later. And then later you hear people talking about like, oh yeah, they were supposedly put away and all imprisoned for slander, even though they didn't cause the slander, and so they got put away unjustly. And then later you hear a thing about like how, when imprisoned, they became so desperate that they called out, and the frenzied flame responded. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, starting to paint a picture here. So these motherfuckers were like traveling around, and then one day someone's like, yo, they talking shit. So they put them all in a hole, and they got desperate enough to call an outer god to give them super fire powers and pretty much try and burn the world down. All right, that's some Lovecraftian shit right there. Dope.
Yep. Yeah, the other thing is that like I mean, and I feel like with Neil with Neil, it'd be fascinating to see him to try to attempt a non-linear sort of story because again,
Oh yeah,
because again, like the way he sort of seems to work is that they're very sort of guided experiences. Now, how much of that control would he want to let go? You know, could he tell a story in that fashion and not want to be like, hey, I directed this, you know, essentially, you know, I'm putting the pieces here, you know, for you to walk through.
I think that you can have a straightforward story with still doing environmental storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
I think the personal problem is like, I think a thing a lot of people overlook is the way Dark Souls / Elden Ring / Bloodborne games work is, you know, you kind of consult the wiki, and that's very intentional. It's not a shortcut. It's an idea designed to kind of try and bring people together. It's a very intentional design, right? And that's one of the things that helps people kind of get down and suss out stories, is that they kind of then want to get together in groups and like discuss fan theories and things like that. And again, that's all intentionally cultivated. And I feel like that's overlooked a lot in the discussion. So, you know, how Neil would tell a story where there are intentional beats that you can miss without openly advocating community discourse is going to be a whole different beast entirely.
I feel like with the Souls games in general, that sort of discourse sort of happens just because of the way the nature of it being made. I don't know if that was the intention to have people talk about it, but
it was.
Okay.
One of my favorite things about the series is his original idea for the series, and the reason you had bonfires in the original games was his kind of inspirational moment was when travelers gather around, you know, when strangers who are traveling gather around a communal campfire and share stories together about the things that they found out there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're supposed to then kind of congregate in these groups and have other people show or tell you about these secrets.
Mm-hmm.
You're not supposed to be able to get everything yourself. You're kind of supposed to have to rely on the community, thus the summon signs, the message signs, and things like that.
Mm.
So it was at least the goal. And he may have happily just stumbled into it. I like to think it was deliberate because, you know, set out to achieve something and he did it. So I call that a win. But yeah, I that's one of my favorite parts about that is the community, as quote unquote toxic as they are, which I don't think is actually the case, man. People like there's a whole bunch of us out there who just do the whole let me solo her thing.
There's like different levels. I feel like each, like it's sort of somewhat splintered but united, where it's like an idea of like there are the people that are the lore hunters, right? They're the people that are analyzing the texts and looking at the environments and looking deeper into what, you know, the context of the world. There are the people that are purely interested in sort of the gameplay portion of it and sort of mastering those parts of it. You know, then obviously there's the PvP. So there's different ways that you can, I think, can enjoy one of those games beyond just going down. There's no, just like the way the game is there's no right way to go about what you're doing.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying I think the whole community that's built up isn't just because the game is hard and people have to check the wiki. I think it's more than that. I feel like that's kind of an intentional facet of the game. And I think a lot of players, studios, developers aren't necessarily looking at that part. They're just kind of going like, well, we're going to make this hard. And, well, yeah, it's going to make it hard, but it's not going to have the mimetic nature that a Souls game does. You know, Souls games begs to have videos made about it and wikis and discussion groups and forums and blah, 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 this, that, and the other, because it's kind of designed in a way that makes you want to talk to your friend about it.
Yep, definitely. Good stuff. So now, like, look, Neil can learn things. Maybe everybody else can. Maybe you don't need to put giant glowing signs and yellow ledges on everything in order for people to finally interact with these things. Maybe you just obviously you have your stories, but maybe give people like to solve things. There's always that.
Danny, they do audio logs now.
Oh yeah, those audio logs.
You know what? I do hope this like kind of trickles down. Like, the way audio logs did with
the BioShock games.
BioShock, it's clear that the industry takes cues from things that are successful. I hope that this is one of those things that gets absorbed into the rest of the industry. Like I said, my only concern is that the wrong part. Like, you can't just look at it and be like, well, I figured out their formula to success and I'm going to go do that now. Like, no, I think we actually have to sit down and maybe have some discussions, because we need to figure out, what we like and what we don't like. We can't just distill it down to, this game's hard.
Mm-hmm. So you're looking forward to Druckman Souls?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to anything that involves more like environmental storytelling, because I like that in things like Fallout as well. Like, I like, and sometimes that includes, here's an audio log, here's some environmental storytelling, maybe here's some flavor text. Like, go ahead, spread it out. Let me work for it. Trust that if I'm interested enough, I'm going to delve deep. The problem is, a lot of times it's not interesting enough. Like, I like figuring this shit out, but you throw 5 pages of text at me or a 1 hour cutscene, I'm gonna check out.
They're like, yes. When I was sitting, it's the itchy. Well, come on, I liked reading the Itchy Tasty journal in Resident Evil. Hearing about the guy's slow transformation into a zombie.
Favorite.
Yeah.
I felt like Itchy Tasty was a kind of environmental storytelling at that time. Itchy Tasty is one of my favorites. Yeah. I kind of checked, like, that's why I checked out, and I'm sorry, Manny, I'm sorry. It's why I checked out Metal Gear Solid 3. Couldn't take the cutscenes, man.
3 is not I feel like it's not the most egregious, but I think one of the people that are probably the most guilty of the tell and show the telling and showing is Kojima himself, where he, like, there'll be portions of the game where he'll just drop an information dump on you, that literally give you the whole plot of the game and stuff. And I feel like that's one thing that I think he is his one failing in a lot of his games. Like, at one point at every single one of his games, there is that moment, maybe toward the end or close to or at the end of the game, where he will literally drop everything and give you all the information that was in the game.
Just in case you missed it.
Just in case you missed it. Metal Gear Solid 2 does it. Metal Gear Solid 1 does it. 2 does it. 3 does it. They all do it at some point in time where he has to literally drop all of his lore at the end of the game, and then you make your decision as to how you feel about that.
Now that I think about it, that did really strike me as weird. The end of the first game, I was like, don't we have better shit to be doing right now?
No, Liquid Snake, for a good portion of the game, he literally gives you the plot of the game. He tells you why he's doing everything. He tells you about the history, the mystery of you, why you look and he look exactly the same. He gives you all of it at the end of the game, like before your final battle.
That's what I'm saying.
Before your final battle with him. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, who talks this much before a fight?
It's like, yes, the despicable children, or the terrible children. We are clones of Big Boss. It's like, all right. And then at the end of
that's the anime syndrome.
Yeah,
I feel if we're like talking this much, we're already maybe talking our problems out. So like,
or like again, Metal Gear Solid 2, it's the AI talking to you, essentially giving you everything. The AI gives you. Oh no, what they do in that one is, you talk to Solidus about stuff. Like, he tells you his plot, and he tells you what the Patriots are and all that stuff. Then the AI Patriots call you and literally flip the script around, not even in the same, like in the same, like 30 minutes of back-to-back cutscenes, and then you fight. So yeah, I think that's the one thing that Kojima needs to learn to do. He needs to let go and not give everything away. Oh yeah, and then the other thing he's guilty of is putting important information inside of really important information in optional content. So
did he get better with the whole environmental storytelling with Walking Simulator though?
Yeah. Let's see.
I genuinely forget the name of it. I'm not trying
Death
to be
Stranding.
cheeky, I'm sorry.
No, Death Stranding, as far as environmental storytelling, it gives you, especially with crushed cities and sort of ancient sorts of things. They sort of give you those things, but there's a lot of tell and show. Like, in other words, they're like, hey, this is a place that was destroyed by a nuclear bomb. Like, okay, we know. Like, they really don't. He really doesn't. I think as much as open as his games have currently become, they're still very sort of rigid in the story. The only thing I would say is his deeper context is pretty interesting as to the crux of why he wants to go down these directions. But I do feel like a lot of his storytelling, and it depends a lot on information drops at some point in the game, which I think is the part that really, it's like, how could we not have gotten this earlier, or little trickles of this? Nope, he literally has to show his cards at the end. So
May, let me ask you, as being involved in several storytelling industries, why do you think that games are so bad about breaking the show versus tell rule, whereas at least other mediums seem aware of it?
Oh, because they're afraid you're gonna miss it. They're afraid that really nice painting on the wall that has a bunch of lore connected to it, you're gonna walk past it and not see it, as opposed to letting you just walk past it and go, and then turn around and go, wait a minute, that was a painting. And that painting seems to have to do with all of what's around here.
I know that guy.
I know that guy. Wait a minute. That guy, we met him earlier down the street. Make those sorts of mental leaps. I feel like a lot of times when it comes to Western games, they will handhold it and put a giant big, a nice big sign on there, or some commentary saying, hey, maybe you should use your axis on this puzzle, brother. Stuff like that. Whereas, as opposed to, I haven't played the new God of War, but I saw a video of literally all those situations where the guy's like playing the game, and then all of a sudden he's just looking around, is like, maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that. I'm like, God damn it, these guys need to shut the fuck up. At least give me some time before you tell me how to solve this stupidly easy puzzle that you obviously use the axe or some other weapon that you have.
I can tell you why stuff like that exists, and it kind of falls on what Brett was saying about how, I hope they'll learn certain aspects of story-based telling from Elden Ring. Brett, if you watch a lot of GDC, then you'll understand exactly what is going on. So the whole thing about the level design and how God of War 2 is doing it's all based on feedback that they got from the first game, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Wait, they took feedback from the first game?
Yes, they took feedback, but they took feedback from possibly the worst people possible. And these guys are just people. So basically, there's a GDC that came out in 2019 where they talk about the level flow, and they show an example of a streamer called Darkside Phil. I don't know if you guys are aware of him. Mm-hmm. If not, then lucky you. If you are aware of him, then I feel bad for you. And basically they show a stream, a part of his stream where they show how he was able to miss something in the environment, and hence it showed that the game had bad level design. So hence they added all this extra features so that people like Darkside Phil don't miss things. And Darkside Phil is a guy who just plays games with his eyes closed by the looks of it. Mm-hmm. And that's why we get God of War 2, where every single NPC is literally holding your hand throughout the whole thing.
Damn it. Can we just maybe get to the point? Look, we're going to have to be real here for a minute. Eventually, game journalists might have to learn to play video games.
I don't know. That's the thing.
This is a streamer.
He's a game streamer.
Excuse me. Actually, that's what I should have said. Streamers,
and that's why it's so bad. Because it's they are taking cues from people who stream games for a living, but yet are still bad at it. It's this is where the input comes in.
Right. I'm amazed. I thought that game streamers were good at games. come to find out, I was apparently very wrong. They're often terrible.
Oh, that's a nice hat you got there, son.
Can you read what it says?
Yeah, it says Last of Us.
Yep. What's going on, people? Brett, what's going on now?
What's up?
What were you yelling about?
I thought I was under the impression that game streamers were good at video games, thus they were streaming. Come to find out, a lot of them are fucking awful.
By the way, before you interject, Tony, I think you're using the wrong mic.
I was gonna say you're loud and echoey.
Oh, because I'm using a new webcam. It's probably picking that up.
Yep.
It is.
Magic.
Boom.
There you go.
Looking sharp though.
Yeah, it looks good. Yes, a new Logitech camera I'm testing out. So I'm like, let me do it here. The only thing is, I can't reverse this camera like I can the other Logitech. So like it'll look good on your end because I'm not streaming. But if I'm streaming, I have to use the other Logitech camera because it does.
Okay.
Logitech makes no fucking sense. For every device they have a different app. Like, okay, the Logitech Logic Capture does not work with this webcam.
That's silly.
Also,
all the Elgato apps work together. Like if you have multiple Elgato things, it'll all use Elgato's stream app.
Yeah, because that actually makes sense. But Logitech literally for a keyboard, it's fucking, it makes no sense. I have 3 or 4 Logitech apps for different devices. Why not make one app for everything? You know? Yeah.
So, yeah, we were actually talking about the fact that Neil Druckmann essentially likes the environmental storytelling and sort of implied that he might apply that into his new games. It's it was a interview by your boy.
Would you call that the Elden Ring effect?
It could be the Elden Ring effect.
Well, it's explicitly the Elden Ring effect because he said Elden Ring's the game that triggered it.
Yeah. So do you think this will cause a cascade effect? You think other developers, not stupid ones like the Ubisoft guys who are hating on it, you think other developers will be like, you know what? Yeah, let's do what Elden Ring did.
I'm gonna say this.
Do you think they'll actually learn the right lesson from this game?
I'm gonna say this. The only reason why they're listening is because the Golden Child said something about it.
Oh shit! Yeah, Neil Druckmann. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's here's the thing. If it was anybody else, saying stuff like that, they'd be like, you're wrong, you're wrong. He's kind of like the Golden Child. So I feel like him saying something like that might cause a little bit like, oh, wait a minute, maybe we do need to look at this the way these developers are doing things.
Yeah, but again, I'm very happy that he got the right message from the game because the wrong message would be make shit harder. That's the wrong lesson. The lesson is, hey, build a world that feels believable and that isn't just throwing the story at you like The Last of Us does,
or a certain God of War game.
See, Tony and I agree. It's just mostly when he's not on the air.
It happens. Hold on, I gotta stop the show right now. Brian, what is going on, brother?
Nothing much, Tony. Just enjoying. Came back from the land of the deserts.
Yeah, man. We thought they kidnapped you and shit.
I told that, or you rode back in Camelback or something.
I told him when on the way because Carlos before this was like, man, where's Brian? Man? He's like, I wonder if he's dead. He says what he's saying.
I mean, technically, you could ride from Camelback from Africa or whatever the hell it was up to No, you can't because England, you got the fucking. The straight.
You need to go.
There's a tunnel though. There's a famous English tunnel.
You can take the tunnel.
That is true.
That is true. Tunnel where you can drive a Euro car.
Yeah, but Brian, the Euro car. But Brian, I missed you, man. It's good to have you back, man.
It's good to be back. I'm just annoyed that I missed last week.
Torrance and Riku.
Yo, question. I know this is not the right show, but is Riku serious and he's going to stop getting trophies?
Yeah, that he's going to slow down, he said. Yeah, I think
I'm in the wrong universe, mate.
Well, no, he's how old is our boy there? 25?
32.
No, he's not. He's 32. 25.
No, he got like standing baby face. He's like Michael J. Fox,
Well, he's Michael A. Crawford.
Yeah, but yeah, he's definitely reached that sort of age in your life where you're sort of you're not as wasteful of the time that you have, and you want to spend it more in less in distraction and more in focusing on something. I can totally understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's one of the things I was talking to my friend Ryan, who invited me to the Last of Us screening. It's like, listen, man, the older I get, the thing I value most is time, man. Time and experiences. Like, I'd rather spend like time hanging out with any of my friends than playing some fucking video game. You know,
it's weird. It's weird. You spend most of your younger life blowing time away, wasting your time, distracting yourself, your time. But you notice that as you start to get older, you start to be more respectful of the time that you're spending, more selective of the time that you're spending.
Yeah, and you're right about that. And I also, tying it back to Elden Ring, that game, even though it was big and expensive, I felt it respected my time, even when I wasn't actually engaging with the main quote unquote story or whatever. Like, it was a good experience, that respectful of my time. I appreciate it. But then there's other games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, not respecting my goddamn time. With filler bullshit.
It's like the sort of busy work, right? Where essentially you're it's almost like you're performing virtual chores. Hey, pick up this thing and bring it to me. Oh, hey, grab all those feathers on the top of these roofs.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it actually did the opposite of, like, it not only didn't do fetch quests, but 90% of the time when you needed an item, they're like, excuse me, would you donate this item to me that you picked up several hours ago and then promptly forgot about?
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, I've got that thing here. Like, I think there was 1 or 2 times where I had to be like, no, where do I get that? And just come back later. But for a game that doesn't hold your hand, I think a lot of us hit a lot of the main beats pretty hard.
Yeah. So yeah, if Neil Druckmann and other people like learn a lesson from that, that's great. That's fantastic.
So, it's funny that you talked about Last of Us, because we did have a small topic to not anything, because again this week was just
Manny, do you want to save that for the last topic? I think there's one more topic that we might have missed.
Oh, what is that? Is that I didn't put it in here. So what is that topic?
There is a Xbox Direct, Developer Direct that was announced for January 25th.
Oh, yes.
That's my birthday.
Hey,
let's go to Xbox Land. So,
right.
But here's the thing, like, so it's gonna be developer thing. Didn't they do something like this last year where they sat down with the folks at Bethesda and to talk about some games and things? It was like a special that had developers and stuff on it.
Yeah, it's usually like after the E3 conference or something like that.
Okay.
Normally do that, but yeah, they're gonna do another conference, or they're gonna do an early year conference where they're gonna show Redfall, Forza, Microsoft Legends, Minecraft Legends, and it says more to be expected. But there is a notable omission. Starfield isn't in the list.
Isn't it getting its own thing?
Yeah, so that's the thing. Apparently, what I think Microsoft already clarified is, or Bethesda clarified is, they said that they need a bigger event just for Starfield by itself.
They need a bigger stage. They don't want to steer that stage with those other garbage.
I'm like, you guys own this one conference. Can't you just expand it? But I mean, but at least they clarified, which is good.
So it's interesting. We have, everybody has been saying that Microsoft has been a little bit mum and thinking they're mum because of the whole FTC silliness. But
yeah, it kind of puts an end to that narrative, doesn't it?
Adam was super defensive.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
He gave us like 20 articles.
Yeah.
Go ahead. That didn't have something to play with it, but like, dude, the internet exploded with bad PR. You think they're not gonna? They're like, all right, well, maybe. Also, I found out the termination date for this thing is July. So like, how long can you wait, man? Obviously, this is going to be a protracted thing. How much brand damage are you willing to do in the meanwhile?
I mean, for me, it seems like they already knew this event was going to happen during the
Yeah.
Game Awards, so that's why they didn't do anything at the Game Awards.
Yeah, because they had their own thing
Yeah.
going on. That's at least what I figured.
That's probably the likely reason. Not that the FTC or any that silliness. It's because they didn't want to, like shoot themselves in the foot with this show or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that makes sense to me. The question is, what will you see? They already said no Starfield. They already said it.
Which it was what I was looking forward to, man. I was like, man, we get to see some Starfield finally, maybe get a release date, and nope, we get Redfall Forza.
Shit. Yeah, right.
The only thing that I'm kind of curious about is Redfall, but who knows? Hopefully they have like a special announcement. But
I mean, to be honest, with Redfall, I was just like,
And by the way, I do want to mention, they're still doing the whole Xbox and Bethesda thing.
Yeah,
they're the same company now. They don't have to.
They don't need to say and.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think it's gonna be stupid? Imagine in the future, Microsoft X Bethesda X Activision Blizzard.
Blizzard.
Maybe.
That's what I said during the acquisition. I'm like, what? Because I think it was the E3 conference was the Xbox and Bethesda conference.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they pretty much let them run themselves independently, don't they?
well, not
For now.
For now, we'll see.
Well, I know. I mean, that's what I take that to mean. Like, sure, like, yeah, you're acting as a publisher.
I'm pretty sure they do the same thing with Obsidian.
Yeah, like I don't see that as a weird precedent for Microsoft to have. Like, look, you have studios that you're basically running independently or as a publisher. Like, sure, like let them retain some of their glory.
Well,
right?
you know why they're doing it. They're doing it because Bethesda adds a little bit more of a credibility towards the sort of the conference name.
Prestige.
It's a little bit more prestige. Yeah. It's like the Xbox and Bethesda showcase.
Yeah.
They've already been together for 2 years. They've already been married for 2 years. Sleep in the same bed.
Well, I think it's a branding thing. I think it's just that Microsoft doesn't want, like, they've gotten all these companies, but they don't want it to seem like this big homogenous blob. They more want it to seem like all of these studios are still themselves, but under the Microsoft umbrella. And as long as they're actually running them that way, I'm fine with it being depicted that way. Right? Like,
So let's say, for example, Brett, let's say if Activision Blizzard deal comes through, do you think it's a good idea to call it the Xbox and Bethesda and Activision / Blizzard?
No. It should only be like whatever game they're talking about is brought to you by Microsoft and that game studio.
But like let's say it's the E3 showcase where they do a whole bunch of announcements for multiple studio titles.
No, if it's not just a 2-person thing, then no, it's just going to be the Microsoft showcase because it's the umbrella of Microsoft. But
this one is multiple too. Like, they're going to show Forza stuff, they're going to show Minecraft stuff. So my thing is, I think they're just doing Xbox and Bethesda because putting Bethesda in the title kind of adds to the prestige of the event. I don't think they necessarily want to showcase that, Bethesda is their own thing. It's like, well, they've already talked about it plenty, and the games themselves speak for that.
I think it's more that they don't want Microsoft to seem like EA, where it's just it's gobbling up the identity of these companies. I think they more want to seem like like a publisher. So I don't even think it's necessarily holding up Bethesda. I think it's trying to not be seen like the big corporate giant eating up everything and homogenizing it into a huge profit blob. But that's just me.
Yeah, no other big studio does this. Like, we don't have the Sony and Insomniac show, or anything like that, or the Nintendo and Game Freaks show. Like, it's just a unique thing that Microsoft is doing when they acquired the studio. So interesting to keep track of, to see if they keep doing it.
Yep. So yeah, we have a final one. Oh, I mean, we probably already went over the time a little bit, but Well, we had a little thing about talking about Last of Us since Tony went to see it. You probably can't talk fully about it, but
no, they specifically told us don't talk about it. But it's weird because reviews are already out.
Yeah, the reviews are out.
Yeah, I think I generally agree with the reviews. It's really well done. My only problem is, and this is just a personal thing, I'm still tired of zombie shit. So I'm in a weird place. Like, yo, this is a very well done show. Like, I'm speaking objectively right now. This is a very well done show. Acting is on point. Looks fucking expensive, which is really nice, and it looks like the game, right? But at the same time, it's like I've been here before. And I'm not talking about because I played the game. I'm talking about like how many zombie stories have we seen follow this exact same premise?
Whoa. Did you just give an objective and a personal opinion?
Yes,
you did,
motherfucker. I knew you could do it.
I always do it, man. You just don't pay attention.
That's not true.
Yeah, but no. Well, the thing is, Brett, you need me to say objective, personal. That's even though you need to learn how to distinguish, man.
No.
Yeah.
I know. I sometimes find it difficult to get an objective opinion out of you, because you're very insistent on your personal one.
Damn right.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, you can give an objective opinion. It's just most
of course
of the time
I can't.
You don't think it's worthwhile. You think.
Oh yeah, I don't listen. When I'm on this show, I'm giving my personal opinion because I have to give my objective opinion during my job.
I'm just giving you shit, homie.
Yeah, you know how it is, man. But yeah, so that's my take on it. But I can't say too much. Yeah. I will say this though, man. I don't know who wrote this shit. They said, "Oh, this show's different because it's not the cordyceps virus." Yes, it fucking is. They literally say the cordyceps virus. So it's like, what the fuck? Who said that shit?
What were they saying it was going to be if it wasn't the cordyceps virus?
No, somebody, and this is from a review. They go, "Oh, the game fans are going to be mad because the origin of the virus is different." No, it isn't. It's the same thing. They literally say cordyceps infection, like in fucking signs everywhere.
Yeah. There's a lot of people out there who don't play the games. They say that they do.
Oh, and I'm going to say this though. Ooh, okay, I got to be careful about it because I think it was one of the producers said this bullshit line like, "Oh, you're going to feel more intense about the show because it's not just a bunch of pixels," right? I found that very stupid statement, right? I'll say this though. I'm not going to spoil nothing. There's one specific scene in this show that I felt hit way better in the fucking game. Way better. And if you know what I'm talking about in the intro, you know what I'm talking about. That specific scene, the intro that fucks you up. In the show, very well done, but it ain't on the level of the game. When the game happens, like, oh shit, in this one. But at the same time, Brett being objective, was it because I saw it coming though? You know what scene I'm talking about. So yeah.
Interesting. It's funny because I expected you to be like, it's trash. It's trash.
No, it's not. I can't be objective. It's very well done. It's a really good, acting. Like I said, acting's good. The fucking acoustic guitars everywhere. And the music, obviously. Yeah. That's all well done. And again, like you're watching the show, you're like, damn, this looks like the fucking game. All the sets and stuff. But again, just for me, I'm like, do I want to watch more of this? How many seasons of Walking Dead? I watched like 8 seasons of that fucking show before I'm like, all right, I think I'm done now. Do I want to go through that again? I don't know.
Here's the thing.
I feel like this is a rollback.
Here's the thing. There's not that much content that they could really do in this show.
Yeah.
Like if they're maybe they might be extending the middle part. Maybe they give you the part where they go into or how they get to Washington or to the dam and all that other stuff. But to be honest, we already sort of know where this thing is going to go.
Yeah. It ended with a preview of the rest of the season. It really felt like highlights of the video game. Which is a good thing, I guess, in some respects. Like, oh yeah, remember that.
You think there are going to be any Gohan Saves the Village episodes?
Gohan Saves the Village?
Yeah, the filler episode.
Oh, the filler bullshit. Oh God, I hope not.
I at least know from one of the reviews they develop a story that was sort of implied in one of those letters.
I think I know what you're talking about. By the way, I have a little bit of a problem right now.
Oh,
You know me, I don't fuck around with this type of color, right? You know me, I don't like light colors.
Mustard.
Yeah, but it feels good to wear though.
it doesn't look. It
Well,
doesn't look bad.
is that a Carhartt?
I don't know. This is the logo for the fucking company. I don't know.
Yeah, that looks like a Carhartt. Carhartt makes good shit, yo.
Yeah, no, I'm wearing. I'm like, yeah, this feels.
No,
good
if
right
that's
now,
a
man.
if they by the way, they gave you a good ass hat because Carhartts are expensive. But
Carhartt.
Yeah, it
Okay.
like I've had a jacket for at least shit. It's got to be at least 20 years old. Same
wow.
the jacket that I have with the Hellboy patch on the side.
Yeah,
I've had that thing for years. My dad.
I guess I'll have this for years too, but it feels good. But I guess it doesn't clash too much with my black and shit. So
No, mustard's a good color as long as you're not all in mustard.
no, fuck that. You know me, man.
That's
I
like
just wear
that's
black.
like the 90s. You used to wear a mustard shirt, you know, be like
Oh, everybody used to do that shit, you know. Hey Brian, remember that one time like I was about to start the show and I was like, I gotta change my shirt. It's not black enough. You know, that's how I roll.
Tonyisms.
Yeah,
But-
it was hilarious though. Like my sister came over with the kids last week and shit, and I'm like, yeah, go ahead, look around, you know. And they open up the closet, like Tony, everything you have here is black. I'm like, damn right, you know.
Yeah, well, you know, black goes with everything. Makes you
It
look
does,
good.
yeah. I also appreciate that they realized what I was doing with the apartment. It's like, oh, everything's black and white and gray. I'm like, yep, that's the point, you know. Because I'm like, okay, the walls are white, the cabinets are gray. Let's make everything match, you know.
There's a method to your madness.
Yeah. By the way, you can see more of it because I put the camera up here and stuff. I finally got my dual monitors like really close together and shit, so I changed it around.
Yeah, you don't have that space in the center.
Yeah, I don't have the space center. Yeah, no anymore. So maybe later on I could get some, you know, some cool lighting going on back there and stuff. Could have my shade open because I always have to have the shade down before because I didn't want motherfuckers seeing the street because I don't want them to dox me, you know, because I may say something about Xbox, you know. Yo, baby, I know that street. Man, get that motherfucker, man.
But by the way, I actually do have Game Pass.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Oh, no. Don't you got Game Pass for life now because you're a Xbox developer?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. I can't say anything about
you
what
know.
I'm doing. But I do have it now, so I might be trying some things that I might have not tried before. But I don't have an Xbox.
Oh shit. Well, hey, PC Game Pass.
There's
I
PC
guess.
Game Pass. So I put High on Life on there to see if I could try that one.
Somebody get this man a Steam Deck. You know. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, Last of Us, good stuff. Go check it out. It's coming on Sunday.
Good stuff.
By the way,
looking at one go, or is it like
What happened? One a week.
Okay.
Which is good. You know, I don't that binging stuff. I don't condone that shit. You know, you got to absorb the episodes, man. You know.
Good stuff. So yeah, I think that's the end. I think we've did it. So all right. So yeah, thanks you for watching Throwdown. I was your host, Emilio Lopez, and I was joined by Carlos Romero.
Peace out. By the way, quick thing.
Do you have any plugs?
We did record an I Am Negan episode last night that went up last night on the Coalition, where we go through what the roadmap is for everything The Walking Dead. And I do want to do a segue time. Stay tuned because we'll likely have a Last of Us recap show on the Coalition YouTube.
Whoa!
Coalition.com. So make sure to stay tuned for that if you're interested in the Last of Us HBO show.
Oh, there we go. Then next up is Brett Murdoch.
Take it easy, people.
Brian Manjoma.
In case you are wondering, my game of the year was the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
and coming in on a clutch, Tony Panok.
Hey man, well, that's not my last name.
Panako, man, you
yeah.
Tony Panko, son.
At least you got the kind of like the syllables right or whatever.
Tony
Polanco, you know.
Polanco.
Yeah, you already know people, man. Throwdown. I'll do the plug stuff. You know, check us out on Twitter, Twitch, you know, Discord, where the conversations are always popping. Throwdownshow.com, you know, where you can listen to past episodes. We are also on every podcast app, and we're also on YouTube. And check us out for our premieres and all that good stuff. So we'll be back on Sunday, man.
All right, so laters.
Since
Deuces.